Easter, Pascha, the feast of the resurrection of Christ, of the resurrection of the Lord. Who's right? What date of Easter is correct? Is the Orthodox Easter the correct date, or is it the Catholic Easter the correct date? What is the correct date? What did the Council of Nicaea, who set the rules for the unified Easter, because in the early church there were various observances of when to celebrate the death and resurrection of Christ. And the church tried to unify that all Christians might have one Easter celebrated on the same day, because otherwise it's a scandal. Oh, you're celebrating his resurrection on that day, and you guys are celebrating his resurrection on this day. What kind of Christianity is this? What kind of the way? Christians were called members of the way at the beginning of the first centuries, until they were called Christians in Syria first. So we are members of the way, who is the truth and the life. So we have to have a unified Easter. And why am I doing this video today? Well, we're close to Easter season in a few, pretty soon. And what triggered it actually was a podcast by Return to Tradition. I'm pretty sure most of you who would watch my YouTube channel, you would probably watching Return to Tradition. So in it, the presenter was freaking out, basically saying, Francis is going to sell out the Catholic Church to the Orthodox. They're talking about the unified Easter. He wants the unified Easter with the Orthodox. You know what that means? It means the end of the Gregorian calendar. We're all going to go back to the Julian calendar. It's going to screw up all of our, especially for the traditional Roman Rite, it's going to screw up the whole liturgy. Our whole calendar is going to all get screwed up. And I found this to be a bit stupid, to be honest, even though I listen to him every day pretty much. But this was a bit over the top and, in fact, stupid. Why do I say stupid? Well, because Easter is the date. I can pick any date in the calendar and make it Easter Sunday if I want to, hypothetically. And that would still not affect the liturgical cycle in the least, because every single year, the date of Easter is different, pretty much. Sometimes in March, sometimes in April, sometimes, in May, or on different days. Does this screw up Christmas Day? Does this feast, Feast of the Chair of Peter, does that screw it up? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Date of Easter is changeable, and it does not affect the actual calendar which we use, whether the traditional Roman Rite or whichever calendar you want to use, the liturgical calendar. It does not change it. So so that's one point which is totally false, and it's totally wrong, basically. And the other thing was, this means Francis is selling out the church. He's going to go to the Julian calendar. So we're going to, because, he wants to make an agreement with the Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew there, and they're going to have a unified Easter. Actually, some of the rigorous so-called Orthodox have been talking about this, that the Patriarch of Constantinople is the one who's going to be selling orthodoxy to the Romans, to the papists, by abandoning the Julian calendar. So they're going the exact same opposite direction. And so that was the trigger for it. And is that a bad thing, to have a unified Easter for all those who are following Jesus Christ? No. This is the main. This should be the normal. This should be the regular, not some weird modernist thing. It is the normal, what it should be, what it must be. And the fact of the matter is, actually, if there were to be a unified Easter, unified Pascha, unified one date for the resurrection of Jesus Christ, it would actually be according to the Western calculation, the Gregorian calendar, which is what we observe. So I'm going to go over the whole article published by the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America in 2021. And the website is called the Orthodox Observer. Okay? So, and it's Orthodox Christian Studies Center for them universities. And it is written by Greek Orthodox, for the Greek Orthodox, published in the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America's website by a highly influential and respected Greek Orthodox layperson. And it is titled by Some Common Misperceptions About the Date of Pascha / Easter. And it's written by Archon John Fotopoulos. Archon is the title. So here he is, John Fotopoulos, PhD. So he teaches so you can read his biography if you wish. But anyways, he's a very high, and Archon is an order. It is a position in the Archon of the Order of St. Andrew, is a prominent layperson in the Eastern Orthodox Church who is dedicated to the promoting of Orthodox faith and tradition. The title Archon is given by the Patriarch of Constantinople. Okay? So his functions are, as Archon, is to defend and promote the Orthodox Christian faith and tradition, protect and promote the sacred see of St. Andrew the Apostle, meaning Constantinople, and so forth. So he has this great honor given to him by the Patriarch of Constantinople, probably Bartholomew. And our calendar, well, actually, let's start with the article. So this is what triggered it. So this all hysteria, oh, Francis is selling out the church. And if you watch my YouTube channel, you know I'm no fan of Jorge Bergoglio. So, and plus he's really sick and dying, and if not already dead. So he himself is not going to be the one giving us a unified Easter. Hopefully, Pope Sarah will be giving us a unified Easter. So anyways, so let's get into this this article. So, and remember, written by an Eastern Orthodox, high-ranked, because he's given that honor by the Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew. It's published by the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. So that's an Orthodox person talking to Orthodox people. And talking to us, talking to everybody interested in something weird these days. You know what it is? The truth. The fact. Because even, honestly speaking, I was thinking, well, yeah, because people who don't understand, there's the Gregorian calendar, which is the one the whole world currently follows. The January 1st being, January 1st is the New Year Day, and so December 25th is Christmas. The Julian calendar was basically by Julius Caesar, Julian calendar. And when we say, oh, the Orthodox celebrates Christmas a different day, January 7th, it's not a different day. On the Julian calendar, which we ourselves in the West, up to the late 16th century, followed the exact same day. And the Julian calendar, it's not January 7th, it is December 25th. On the calendar itself, it is December 25th. So we all celebrate Christmas on December 25th. But then when the Gregorian calendar came in, because of the inaccuracies of the Julian calendar, then that's why there's this apparent, oh, you guys celebrate Christmas on this day, we celebrate Christmas on the other day. No, it's the same day, December 25th. On both calendars, but because one has been a calendar which has become extremely inaccurate, being the Julian calendar, that's why we have this discrepancy. So anyways, let's go through this article by Archon John Fotopoulos. So originally published in 2017 and republished in 2021, here updated and republished in 2021. And I actually went to their own website. I was actually, there's a website called Public Orthodoxy, and they're going to have another conference on a unified Easter, or the date of Easter. So anyways, a common misconception among Orthodox Christians is that Orthodox Easter, i.e. Pascha, often occurs so much later than Western Christian Easter because, and these misconceptions were because actually I thought them, maybe the Western innovated in this part, turned out to be wrong. Anyways, so what do the most Orthodox people, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, whatever, what do they think? Well, the Orthodox, because the Orthodox Church abides by the rules for calculating the date of Pascha, Easter, issued by the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea in AD 325. That's one misconception. Another element of this misconception is the false belief that the Orthodox Church must wait for Passover to be celebrated by the Jewish community before Pascha may occur. That's another misconception. Despite these views being held by so many Orthodox Christians, as well as being promoted in popular essays written by some Orthodox priests, they are inaccurate, meaning false. The reason why Orthodox Pascha frequently occurs so much later than Easter celebrated, or Pascha celebrated by Roman Catholics and Protestants, is neither because the Orthodox Church follows the Paschal formula of Nicaea. Actually, you will see that the Orthodox Church does not, because they have divinized the Julian calendar. They divinized a secular calendar. So it's neither because the Orthodox Church follows the Paschal formula of Nicaea, nor is it because the Western churches fail to adhere to this formula. It is not because it is also not because the Orthodox Church must wait for the Jewish Passover, celebration of Passover. Rather, Orthodox Pascha, Christian Easter, Christian Passover frequently occurs later than Western Easter because the Orthodox churches, because there is no one unified church. I mean, there is no communion currently between the Patriarch of Constantinople and the Patriarch of Moscow. Anyways, and a lot of them are basically autocephalous, independent. So between the Orthodox churches, okay, here we go. Rather, the Orthodox Pascha frequently occurs later than Western Eastern or Western Pascha because the Orthodox Church uses inaccurate scientific calculations. So it's not the West is wrong. It is the Orthodox who are using inaccurate scientific calculations that rely on the inaccurate Julian calendar to determine the date of Pascha for each year. Some background information is necessary to help explain precisely what the problem is. So now he's going to give us some, and I found this article really, really, really enlightening. So, historically, Jesus' death and resurrection occurred in the association with the Jewish Passover. Although the Synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, and the Gospel of John contain differences regarding the precise day of Passover at that time. Now, I want to just do a quick comment here, again, because those who deny the divinely inspired scriptures, that they contain no error, they'll say, oh, look, it's a mistake. John says Passover was this day, and the Mark, Matthew, and Luke are saying Passover is that day. So obviously, it's one of them is wrong. Can be both right, but so the gospel of Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, the Synoptic Gospels, and the Gospel of John differ in their accounts of the date of Jesus' Passover. However, these differences can be explained. Explanation. Calendars. John may have been used the Sadducean of the Sadducees, the priestly calendar, while the Synoptic used the Pharisaic calendar. Because the Sadducees used a solar calendar and the Pharisees used a lunar calendar. And there are various other explanations because people didn't know when the Passover is. When is this vernal, the spring moon coming? And they relied on the temple. So sometimes, this is a big article, actually, the New Testament chronology. And there's the question of the two Passovers. So sometimes the Jews in different countries had to celebrate two different Passovers because they were not sure exactly when the Passover was happening, because only the temple, only Jerusalem would tell them. And sometimes they would add a month, reduce a month. So it was a big. So the most logical explanation right now is, there were the two calendars, the Sadducean calendar and the Pharisaic. Actually, and this article at the end of it's a big long article about the dates, and then Nisan 15. Anyways, but the end of the whole article conclusion, it says, if the Last Supper was a Passover supper, then the crucifixion of Jesus was on April 7, 30 A.D. See, it's a secularist because he's saying CE, current era, but AD. This was Nisan 15 by the sunrise calendar, which is the Sadducees used, and Nisan 14 by the sunset calendar, which were what the Pharisees used. And remember, how the day started with them is sunset to sunset. So from sunset, it's the new day. So that's how. So this is the point he's talking about, the differences. I just wanted to do this as an aside. Okay, in light of these differences, early Christian churches developed distinct practices regarding when they were to celebrate Christian Pascha and how the date of Pascha was to be determined. And that's why the Council of Nicaea formulated these rules for all Christians to follow, so that there would be one Easter, one Pascha. And actually, it took hundreds of years for that to happen. I can't remember. I don't think it was Nicaea. I think it was the next ecumenical council or the one after it, where it acknowledges, like, finally all our brothers in the East are now celebrating the same the feast of the resurrection on the same day as us, as Rome and Alexandria. Finally, they came to it. So it says some ancient churches celebrated Pascha on the Sunday immediately following Jewish Passover. Jewish Passover, boom, first Sunday, that's our Easter Sunday, our own Passover. While others emphasized Jesus' suffering death on Pascha and thus celebrated the feast on the same day as Jewish Passover, regardless of what day of the week Passover occurred. And I think this was happening in Ephesus, and there was the controversy. You have to celebrate Easter on the same day. And they said, no, we are holding on to the tradition we received from St. John the Apostle. So St. John the Apostle held, I'm not sure if one of these two is either on the same day as the Jewish Passover or the Sunday immediately following the Passover. It didn't matter what else. So this happened early in the church. Christian communities that adhere to either one of these Paschal traditions often relied on local Jewish communities' calculations of Passover. So in order to determine the dates of this respective Christian Pascha, I know it's a long article, You want to read it, go ahead and read it, but I'm just giving you my ideas. Passover in itself is a lunar festival marking the beginning of the new year and is to occur annually on the vernal full moon, the spring full moon. This is when the real Passover, according to the scriptures, according to Moses, was to be celebrated. A date that came to be designated in the Jewish calendar as the 14th of Nisan, Exodus 12, 1-6. Now, the problem is that with the inaccuracies of the Julian calendar, over time, Passover was no longer celebrated on the annual, vernal, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, spring full moon. It became completely out of sync. So, actually, I'm going to show you here. Vernal full moon. The vernal full moon is the full moon that occurs after the vernal spring equinox, which marks the beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, in the northern hemisphere. The vernal full moon is also known as the Paschal full moon. So it's the first full moon after the spring equinox, vernal equinox, and is used to calculate the date of Easter. How is the vernal full moon calculated? The vernal equinox is fixed on March 21 by the Gregorian calendar, and actually it's the same story in the Julian calendar, but unfortunately the Julian calendar is completely out of sync with reality, with truth, with the heavens, with God's creation. The Paschal full moon is the 14th day of the lunar month. The 14th day of the lunar month. The date of the Paschal full moon can differ from the actual full moon by up to 2 days. Not up to 2 weeks or more by the Julian calendar. The date of Easter is the Sunday after the Paschal full moon. So this is how the date of Easter is celebrated. Oh yeah, we dealt with that one already. And the New Testament chronology. Okay, so go back here. So early Christians, well, they didn't know exactly, okay, well, when are the Jews celebrating Passover? Okay, we'll celebrate it at the same day as they do, or the first Sunday after that. Okay, ancient Jewish communities faced many challenges in regulating their year by a lunar calendar because the Jewish lunar calendar frequently fell out of step with the seasons of the solar year. Jews could add an additional month to their calendar every 2 to 3 years to correct. Passover was occurring out of season. A late decision to add a month to the Jewish calendar and/or difficulties communicating meant that not only Jewish communities were always aware, that not all Jewish communities were always aware of the extra month. This resulted in some Jewish communities, and of course followed by the Christians around them, celebrating Passover in different months, while other Jewish communities ended up mistakenly celebrating Passover twice in the same year. So you can see the confusion happening from the beginning, actually. Because of Christian dependence on unreliable Jewish calculations of the spring moon, full moon, vernal full moon, the first full moon after the spring equinox for Passover, and because of the varying Christian traditions, the date of Pascha celebration, the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, convened by the Roman Emperor Constantine, attempted to resolve these issues and promote Christian unity, issuing a formula for the calculation of Pascha. And I think it was, I mentioned this previously. Pope Saint Victor ordered the Christians of the East, Ephesus and so forth, to celebrate Easter on the same day as the Romans and the Alexandrians and the rest of the church. And these Christians said, sorry, we are unable to do that. We have innovated in nothing. Even though he threatened them with excommunicating half the church, because they celebrated Easter on a different day than the Romans. They said, well, we have innovated in nothing. We kept the tradition we received from St. John the Apostle and St. Polycarp, so we're not going to change. Sorry. And they did not say you do not have the authority, you don't bother us, keep your eyes on the Roman Empire. But for major questions like, the date of Easter or doctrine, the Roman bishop would have great authority. And then they refused him. Even St. Irenaeus told Pope St. Victor, just cool it down. You don't have to push them that hard. They're only following the tradition they received. So that's at the beginning from 187 or something like that. So this has been an old issue. So the first council convened by the Roman Emperor to resolve these issues and promote Christian unity, issuing a formula. So the formula of the calculation of Pascha. So the Council of Nicaea determined. So the Eastern Orthodox always accuse Catholics of not following the councils, not following the ecumenical councils, when in fact, when you see what's happening here, it is the Eastern Orthodox who are actually not following the very first ecumenical council in the most important part, which is the calculation of an accurate Pascha, accurate Easter. So the council determined that Pascha would occur on the first Sunday after the first Sunday after the first full moon, occurring on or after the vernal equinox, the spring equinox. So the Nicene formula. So remember, this is an Eastern Orthodox archon, very high-ranking layperson, written for the Orthodox, the Eastern Orthodox, published by the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. The Nicene formula solved several practical issues. First, the Church determined that Pascha would not be celebrated on the same day as the vernal full moon, which itself is the mark of festival Jewish Passover. So if the full moon occurs on a Friday, we're not going to celebrate the resurrection on a Friday. By resolving to celebrate Passover, Christian Passover, on the first Sunday after the vernal full moon, Christian Pascha would forever be associated with the Jewish Passover without being identified with it, thus maintaining the historical association of Jesus' death and resurrection with Passover. So that's problem one solved. Problem two. Second, by resolving Christian celebration of Pascha, by resolving that the Christian celebration of Pascha must occur annually after the spring equinox, the Church is ensured that Pascha, Easter, would only occur once each year. Because remember, some of the Jewish communities had no idea, and they ended up celebrating 2 Passovers. Third, the Nicene formula itself meant that the Church would not be reliant on Jewish calendars, because it is now reliant on the heavens, on God's creation, the way Moses in Exodus told the Hebrews at the time to date their Passover. So we are actually following the correct way of doing it. For this calculation of Passover, the vernal full moon, i.e., so the Nicene Formula itself meant that the church would not be reliant on Jewish calendars for the calculation of Passover, the vernal full moon, or i.e. 14 Nisan, nor would the church be obliged to wait for the Jewish communities to celebrate Passover. Because celebrating Christian Pascha, before celebrating Christian Pascha. So we didn't have to wait for, let's wait for the Jewish Passover, then we can do Easter. No. Rather, the Nicene Formula ensured that the Christian calculation of Pascha would occur independently of Jewish reckoning of Passover, by instead using the astronomical data of the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon. The spring equinox is the first spring full moon, in order to calculate the Sunday of Pascha, Easter Sunday. This maintained the historical and theological associations between Jewish Passover and Christian Pascha, while allowing the church to ascertain the vernal full moon, i.e., which is the vernal full moon, what is in reality the 14th of Nisan, and hence Passover. So the church, when we know when the vernal full moon is, we know what is 14 Nisan, or the Passover is, without Jewish calendrical problems, the problems with their calendars. Now, because Alexandria, Egypt, was known as a premier center of astronomy in the ancient world, the Church of Alexandria came to assume responsibility in the Eastern Church for making scientific calculations used to determine the date of Pascha. So I was reading another article, and it was actually Rome and Alexandria were doing both of them, the calculations, which matched very closely. And then Rome said, because Alexandria in the ancient past, founded by Alexander the Great, had the greatest, really, geniuses, astronomers, scientists, theologians. Now Alexandria became the center of actually following what astronomy and the stars and the heavens actually determined the correct date of Passover, the way it was determined by Moses. So because Alexandria, Egypt was known as the premier center of astronomy in the ancient world, the Church of Alexandria came to assume responsibility in the Eastern Church, actually even in the Western Church, the whole Church, for making scientific calculations used to determine the date of Pascha, of Easter. Although today many rigorous Orthodox, not very Orthodox I might say, assert that it is only permissible to use the Julian calendar. It's only permissible, so they divinized Julius Caesar and his calendar to determine Paschal dates by employing the ancient Alexandrian scientific calculations. This is to ignore Eastern Orthodox people. The Alexandrian Christians used their own Egyptian, not the Julian calendar, their own Egyptian calendrical dates to determine Pascha, which were then translated into Julian calendar dates for other parts of the empire. Moreover, although the Council of Nicaea issued a clear formula for the calculation of Pascha for Easter, it did not precisely regulate the technical details, methods, or calendar. So, Council of Nicaea said only that it has to be after the spring equinox, after the first full moon of the spring full moon, the first Sunday after that. That's Easter Sunday. That's it. Figure it out. Figure it out by actually, in scientific manner, following the heavens and the stars and the moon and finding the exact, as accurately as possible, the correct date of Easter, which we be truly faithful to Moses and the Old Testament, finding the correct 14th of Nisan, and then it'll be the first Sunday after the full moon. Okay. By which so the council didn't like tell, oh, this is the calendar you have to use. I mean, the Julian calendar was he didn't say, well, ignore Alexandria, which uses the Egyptian calendars, and then it translates the Egyptian dates to the Julian calendar. They did not say you have to use the Julian calendar from now to eternity till thy kingdom come, till the return of Jesus Christ. No. Nor the methods or details by which the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon should be determined. Rather, Alexandria assumed greater responsibility for making Paschal regulations because the Church, why? Because the Church, what? Eastern Orthodox, why? Oriental Orthodox, Coptic Orthodox, why? Because the Church expected the best scientific means available would be used to determine Paschal dates. Finding the best scientific means available. That's why Alexandria was chosen, because they had the brains there. All right? While the Orthodox Church and the Western churches both continue to follow, so in the West, Catholic Church, we follow the formula of Nicaea for determination of Pascha/Easter. The differences in their respective dates of celebration stem largely from the use of different calendars, Julian versus Gregorian, and the different methods of scientific calculation so as to ascertain the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon. The Orthodox Church employs a complex mathematical formula to calculate the date of Pascha. And there was an article, actually, I kind of closed, but it had like a full explanation of the various calculations. Pascha. This formula uses the more inaccurate, meaning wrong, Julian calendar, currently 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar. So it is the Julian calendar is 13 days behind reality, behind what God himself set in the heavens. And a fixed, so they use the inaccurate Julian, and a fixed Julian date of March 31st. Apparently that's the same as the Gregorian, but again, it is a false March 31st. Because I was talking about December 25th, it's the same day. Gregorian calendar would be April 3rd, as the vernal equinox. So no matter when it really happens, no, it's March 31st according to the Julian calendar. We don't care whether there's a vernal equinox, where it happened a year ago or 7 months ago. We don't care. It's the divine calendar of Julius Caesar, which we don't care anything about reality. The Orthodox Church also utilizes mathematically calculated approximations. Approximations, not accurate, of the vernal full moon, based on a 19-year lunar cycle, the Metonic cycle. So they're approximating when the full moon is. They're using a false, fake, broken, defunct calendar to determine the fixed date of the spring equinox. The actual astronomical vernal equinox, however, occurs between 13 and 15 days earlier. So right away you can see the Orthodox are defying God. They're defying the Council of Nicaea. They're defying reality. Julian calendar, March 6th to 8th. Gregorian calendar would be March 19th to the 21st. That's why it says, I read previously that the Gregorian calendar fixes the vernal equinox on March 21st. So it is a day or two, could be between 19th and the 21st. And that's what the Julian calendar did 2,000 years ago. But it has become inaccurate. To adhere to an inaccurate, false calendar is to be just stubborn and stupid, honestly. Un-Christian. Defying the Council of Nicaea. Defying the very scriptures to determine the correct date of the Passover, of the vernal equinox, and vernal full moon. So, So the actual astronomical vernal equinox, however, occurs between the 13th and to 15 days earlier than the aforementioned Orthodox fixed Julian calendar's vernal equinox. In other words, the vernal equinox used by the Orthodox Church for its calculations of Pascha, of Easter, is not the actual astronomical vernal equinox, nor is the vernal full moon, which Pascha must follow, according to Nicaea. The actual astronomical vernal full moon. Simply stated, the best available calendar and the best available signs are no longer being utilized for the calculation of Pascha. Now, there was later on in the early 20th century a compromise. The Eastern Orthodox actually tried to adopt the Gregorian calendar into a reformed Julian calendar. Hopefully I remembered to mention it, because maybe I'll say it now, because I'm not certain if it was in this article or I read it somewhere else. But basically, the various Orthodox churches came together and said, well, we gotta get with the times, get with reality, get with God's creation and His, in the heavens. So they basically allowed each individual church. First of all, they said, okay, for the liturgical calendar, we're going to all use the new Julian calendar, or the reformed Julian, which is basically kind of like the Gregorian calendar. But for the date of Easter, we are going to all follow, because that was a compromise. Some people wanted to say, no, let's follow the reality. A lot of them apparently had very strong resistance to that. So, well, the compromise was, okay, fine. For Easter Sunday, for Pascha, we're just going to follow how we used to do it in the fake, false, inaccurate, against reality Julian calendar. So, but for the rest of the liturgical year, we're going to follow the reformed Julian calendar, which is the kind of like the Gregorian calendar. But still, I don't understand how come some Eastern Orthodox celebrate Christmas on December 25th, some of them don't, still follow. So this actually created, I believe, the old calendarists, a schism in the Eastern Orthodox Church, because, no, this is heresy. We're going to follow because, Julius Caesar was our god and his calendar was divinely inspired. So you are heretics to trying to change the Julian calendar, became the old calendarists, following the old calendar. Anyways, so this, I continue the article. This resulted in Orthodox celebrations of Pascha that are frequently out of sync with the astronomical phenomena. So this year, 2025, is one of the few years where actually the Eastern Orthodox will celebrate the real Pascha, the real Easter, because it's going to be celebrated with the rest of the church on April 20th. So, with the phenomenon of the vernal equinox and the vernal soul. This results in Orthodox celebrations of Pascha, of Easter, that are frequently out of sync with the astronomical phenomena of the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon. Thus, Orthodox Pascha often occurs later in the spring. However, the Western churches use the Gregorian calendar, a much more accurate calendar, although not perfect, and a more accurate scientific calculation of the vernal equinox and the vernal spring full moon. This results in a more accurate celebration of Easter. Remember, this is written by an Eastern Orthodox, given the honors by the Patriarch of Constantinople, published by the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, which better corresponds with the actual astronomical phenomena. So who's got the date of Easter correct, Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church? In this year of 2021, for example, the Orthodox Pascha is celebrated for 4 weeks later, so a whole month later than reality, a whole month later than when it should be, than what the Council of Nicaea ordered, then Western Eastern. Western Easter occurs on April 4th, whereas Orthodox Pascha, or Easter, falls on May 2nd. Julian calendar, April 19th. However, a quick look at the actual astronomical data clearly demonstrate the problems with the current Orthodox calculations of Easter, Pascha, Passover. So he's going to bring in NASA now. According to NASA, the 2021 vernal equinox occurs on March 20th at 9:37. However, it is important to remember that the date and time of the vernal equinox depends on the meridian used for the calculation, the position of the Earth used as the reference point. Therefore, it is generally agreed that Jerusalem should be used as the meridian, since it is the historical location of Jesus' death and resurrection. Thus, the 2021 vernal equinox occurred in Jerusalem on March 20th at 11:37. Moreover, according to NASA, the first full moon after the vernal equinox in 2021 occurs on March 28th. At 18:48, and in Jerusalem March 28th at 21:48 due to Israel daylight savings time. Since the vernal full moon on Jerusalem's March 28th is a Sunday, this meant that the Pascha of 2021 should be celebrated the first Sunday afterwards, which is Sunday, April 4th, precisely the date that Easter is celebrated in 2021 by Western churches, the Catholic Church. So who's actually following God? Who's actually following the Council of Nicaea? Who's actually following the tradition? The Orthodox churches or the Catholic Church? According to the complex mathematical formula currently in use in the Orthodox Church for the celebration of Pascha, without reference to actual astronomical phenomena. So when Moses, tells me, look at the full moon and follow the sun. Yeah, we Orthodox have made a god of our Julian calendar, an idol of the Julian calendar, and we don't care what God's creation tells us. We don't care what the astronomical phenomena tells us. We don't care because, some pope called Gregory the 13th gave us the more accurate calendar, so we have to reject it automatically because we were not consulted, So we're going to reject the more accurate calendar because it came from Rome, from the papists. We're going to hold on to a fake calendar which doesn't correspond to reality. That's how we're Orthodox and keeping the tradition. So, according to the complex mathematical formula currently in use in the Orthodox Church for the calculation of Pascha, without reference to the actual astronomical phenomena, without reference to reality, the vernal full moon for 2121 calculated as occurring on May 1st. May 1st, Julian calendar, April 18th. However, through simple non-scientific so May 1st instead of when it should be would have been April 4th, May 1st. However, through simple non-scientific observation, so any idiot, any person who's not a scientist, just looking up at the stars, a person could look at the astronomical phenomena, meaning the moon, visible on the sky May 1st, which is supposedly the first Sunday after that's the full moon. Of course, this is supposedly the full moon on May 1st. So any person, any human being looking at the sky on May 1st, to understand that there will not be a full moon on that date. Rather, the moon will actually be in a waning, whatever it is, gibbous on May 1st, 2021, with 75% of the moon's visible disk illuminated. So it is actually going away. It's fading. The full moon occurred already. It passed. So adhering to the Julian calendar and ignoring all reality, all the heavens, we're pretending the full moon occurred when it is. Look, here's the full moon. I see it's waning actually. 25% of the full moon already disappeared. The lack of a full moon on that date will be evident in Jerusalem as well in Chicago. Rather, in those two locations and throughout Western Europe and North America, the vernal full moon will occur much earlier on Sunday, March 28th, 2021. Consequently, Orthodox Pascha. So they're pretending it's May 1st when it actually occurred on March 28th. So April, so more than a month and a few days after reality, after the true full moon. Consequently, Orthodox Pascha in 2021 will be especially out of sync with the actual astronomical phenomena linked to an accurate calculation of the date of Paschal date. In fact, on April 27th, 2021, the second full moon of spring will occur in Jerusalem. This means that the Orthodox celebration of Pascha on May 2nd, 2021, will actually occur on the first Sunday after the second full moon of spring. Complete nonsense. I mean, I'm just saying, hey, Orthodox Christians, be Orthodox. Orthodox Christians who value the scriptures, follow the scriptures. Orthodox Christians who follow the ecumenical councils and you're obsessed with them, follow what the first ecumenical council decreed. Follow reality, follow God's creation. Don't make an idol of the Julian calendar. Okay, we're almost done. It was widely understood by ancient Christians that the vernal full moon could not be determined reliably by observation, since what sometimes appears to the eye as a full moon may not, in fact, be one. This is one of the reasons why, after Nicaea, different churches in communion with one another developed a wide variety of scientific mathematical calculations over the centuries to determine the vernal full moon needed to arrive at the date of Pascha. However, actually in one of the articles I was reading, again, it was a monk, was it in Rome or in England, who was doing a whole table of calculations for it. Anyways, however, scientific methods have advanced significantly since the time of antiquity. You don't say. So you're telling me our scientific methods these days are way more advanced than they were 2,000 years ago? Or 1,800 years ago? Are you sure? Are you sure? I'm not certain about that. Because I'm Orthodox, I can't tell if we know more about the heavens and the skies than we did, 1,700 or maybe even more than 2,000 years ago with the time of Julius Caesar, I'm not sure. Because I'm Orthodox and I'm holding on to the tradition. Yeah. Okay. However, scientific methods have advanced significantly since the time of antiquity, as has our ability to reliably know the dates of the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon. And then, of course, after the vernal full moon is the first Sunday after that, which would be Easter Sunday, Pascha Sunday, Feast of the Resurrection, for any given year. Oh, here's I was talking about it, because I wasn't sure if I read it here or I'd read it somewhere else. In 1920, the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople raised the issue of all churches employing a common calendar so that Eastern and Western churches could celebrate major Christian feast days together throughout the year. And that's why Return to Tradition is all freaking out. Oh my God, Francis is going to go back to the Julian calendar. Who says that? From 1920, from Constantinople wanted the Orthodox churches to basically adhere to the Gregorian calendar. And And actually, just before, we'll go back to it. I want to show you. The man, here it is, Gregory the 13th. He is the one who, after whom this new calendar is named, Pope Gregory the Great, because he initiated the reform of the Julian calendar, which we all were following. And actually, it took 200 years, and the rest of Europe after he issued, so 1700s, 1800s, before the rest of Europe accepted the Gregorian calendar. So some countries in Europe were still following the Julian calendar, others were following the Gregorian calendar. So, and he is the man, the myth, the legend, Pope Gregory the 13th, of the Gregorian calendar, the more accurate calendar. So, I'm going to just read this part again. We're almost done. In 1920, the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople raised the issue of all churches, meaning Eastern Orthodox churches, employing a common calendar so that Eastern and Western Christians could celebrate major feast days together throughout the year. Moreover, in 1923, a Pan-Orthodox Congress under the leadership of the Patriarchate of Constantinople advocated using a more accurate, revised Julian calendar, similar to the Gregorian calendar, while also returning to the actual astronomical phenomena. I mean, that's a no-brainer? Is that so hard to comprehend? We have to follow the actual astronomical phenomena of the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon for the calculation of Pascha. Wow, how controversial. Divisive reactions, because a lot of, to be honest and to be insulting, a lot of Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox priests and bishops are ignorant. I know it's a harsh word. Ignorant, other than memorizing and talking about councils and ecumenical councils, without this most basic of realities to be clear. And I'm saying this as well. If you watch YouTube, you'll find a lot of new Orthodox priests who were Protestants like a week ago. And suddenly they're ordained as priests and running a parish. And what did they learn? Oh, they learned online. And now they have YouTube channels talking about orthodoxy. So their understanding is surface level. So how can there be moreover, in 1923, a Pan-Orthodox Congress under the leadership of the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople advocated, and they're actually raging now in Orthodox forums, they're talking, oh my God, Bartholomew, he's going to submit to Rome, he's going to give away our Julian calendar, follow the false Gregorian calendar, against all reality, of course. The false Julian calendar is now the true one. Anyways, using a more accurate revised Julian calendar similar to the Gregorian calendar, while also returning to the actual astronomical phenomena of the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon for the calculation of Pascha, for the calculation of Easter. Divisive reactions against adoption of a new calendar. How dare we revise a calendar designed by a pagan? And a new Pascha calculation resulted in a compromise. Okay, we don't want to create schisms here. We already have enough division. We really don't need more. So fine, we'll have a compromise. So compromising truth. Compromising truth for unity. This is the false Irenicism or false ecumenism which has been going on since Vatican II. Vatican II condemned this false, it's called it false Irenicism, false peacemaking, false ecumenism. But this is what is called ecumenism these days. Okay, for the sake of, let's not divide, let's unite and ignore differences. So ignore truth for unity. So, So divisive reactions against the adoption of a new calendar and new Paschal calculation resulted in a compromise that allowed autocephalous, meaning self-governing, Orthodox churches to choose the old Julian calendar or the new revised Julian calendar, whatever you guys like. That's why some Orthodox churches celebrate Christmas on December 25th, and others, which I guess follow the new revised Julian calendar, which is basically a Gregorian calendar with another name, and those who celebrate January 7th, but in reality it is December 25th on the Julian calendar. So they're using the old Julian calendar. So basically they said, okay, fine. Whoever wants to use the old Julian calendar, you guys use the old Julian calendar. If you want to use the new revised Julian calendar, go ahead and use the revised Julian calendar to regulate the ecclesiastical year. However, the old Julian calendar, which is completely inaccurate and does not follow reality, does not follow God's creation, does not follow the astronomical phenomena, does not follow the words of Moses in determining the 14th of Nisan. However, the old Julian calendar and the false, inaccurate scientific calculation based on it were maintained for the determination of Paschal dates. So basically, you guys can go with the old calendar, Julian calendar, with the revised Julian calendar for your whole liturgical year, except come Easter for the determination of the date of Easter. We're all going to follow the old Julian calendar. The Patriarchate of Moscow couldn't tell them, please, let's follow astronomical phenomena, reality, the reality of God's creation to determine the real spring equinox, the real first moon of spring, and then the Sunday after that to faithfully follow the dictates, the decrees of the Council of Nicaea, which we Orthodox pretend to follow. Okay? That was rejected, basically. In light of the many calendrical and scientific advances today, Orthodox Christians must ask themselves, if it is faithful to the spirit of the First Ecumenical Council, I'd say not the spirit of the Council, the very letter of the Council, the very decree of the Council. It's not the spirit, it's the very documents of the Council of Nicaea to use the inaccurate Julian calendar and a fixed Julian calendar date of March 31st, Gregorian calendar date of April 3rd for the vernal equinox, and a mathematically calculated approximation of the vernal full moon, the spring full moon, for the Paschal calculation. Is it faithful to do that? Is it faithful to do that, faithful Orthodox? Although a representative of the Moscow Patriarchate has recently, so I'm guessing it's probably like in 2021 or 2017 or whenever that was, has recently asserted that the Orthodox Church's current method of Paschal calculation is a dogmatic issue. Where did the Council of Nicaea even mention that? And to depart from it means to lose touch with Orthodox tradition. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nicaea issued its formula for the calculation of Pascha, so Christians everywhere would celebrate the most important Christian feast together in unity, as a common witness to the world. Nicaea did not precisely regulate the technical details, methods, or calendar by which the vernal equinox and the vernal full moon would be determined. But what did the Council of Nicaea and the bishops and the fathers of the Council of Nicaea want? But what did they expect? The best available science to be used for the calculation of Pascha. That's why they chose the most scientific Patriarchate of Alexandria to do the heavy lifting in this regard. Certainly, the best available science is no longer being used for Pascha's calculations, resulting in Orthodox Paschal dates that do not adhere to the Orthodox tradition established by Nicaea. So the Orthodox Paschal dates no longer adhere to the Orthodox tradition established by Nicaea. Then he goes through, I'm going to skip that part, how many times we have the Western churches and the Eastern churches have Easter together. And basically he says, Easter is getting farther and farther and farther away from reality. Like Pascha, Orthodox Pascha is getting far away from reality. And eventually there will be no common celebrations between the Western churches and the Orthodox churches. So because of the making the Julian calendar an idol. A consultation of Pascha Easter on the World Council of Churches in 1997 between world representative of the Orthodox Church and the Western churches resulted in an excellent statement and thoughtful recommendation for a common celebration of Pascha. But of course, nothing happened out of that. Okay, so this is the final paragraph of the article. I hope I didn't bore you. It's kind of a long one, but a very important one, especially from the freak out I saw on Return to Tradition. It's like, oh my God, Francis is selling the church. He's going to change the date of Easter, which is going to screw up all the calendars. Of course it doesn't, as I mentioned previously. To be sure, Western Christians Western Christians mean Catholics, who set the standard through the Gregorian calendar. Western Christians do utilize the formula issued by Nicaea. So we're the only ones, or Catholics, and actually Orthodox who follow, only Catholics, and Western other Protestants, we're the only ones who actually follow the real formula of Nicaea. To be sure, Western Christians do utilize the formula issued by Nicaea for the calculation of Pascha in an accurate manner, while Orthodox Christians do not need to wait for the Jewish celebration of Passover before Orthodox Pascha may occur. Rather, the use of a more accurate calendar and a more accurate scientific calculations by the Orthodox Church are needed for Orthodox Pascha to happen once again each year on the first Sunday after the first full moon occurring on or after the vernal equinox, and again together with the Western Christians, brothers and sisters. So he tells them, that's how it ends. You want to be faithful to Nicaea, you want to follow the dictates of the fathers of the first ecumenical councils, you want to follow tradition, you want to follow Scripture as in Exodus, you want to follow reality, you want to follow God's creation, you want to follow the heavens and the stars and the moon, which God has made and set in motion. If you want to follow God's calendar as displayed in astronomical phenomena, you basically have to stop making an idol out of a calendar and making an idol out of an ancient mathematical calculation and follow true science, true astronomy, true mathematics, and calculate and follow the real Pascha, the real Easter, not a fake, false one, because you do not wish to deviate from a secular calendar by a pagan Roman emperor. Anyways, that's it. That's all. Hopefully you enjoyed this article, presentation, commentary. But yeah, so this is an excellent, excellent article. And actually, I do hope and wish for a unified Easter. Unity in truth, unity in reality, unity according to real astronomical phenomena, real calculations, a real accurate calculation in the calendar, not, of course, I would be completely against the Catholic Church, oh, well, let's go back to the Julian calendar. That's not going to happen, because we've seen in this article many times Eastern Orthodox, the Patriarchate of Constantinople, have been pushing, let's follow reality. Let's follow God's creation. Let's follow the real Easter, the real Passover, which God himself has determined in the scriptures. That's it. That's all. Hopefully you like this video. Like, subscribe, share, comment. And all you Eastern Orthodox people, tell me why the Greek Archdiocese of America, tell me what's wrong with this article, if anything. Defend your position. Anyways, that's it. That's all. See you next time. Bye.